Oh, I say, open up your eyes and see corruption and fighting all around us. Living a convent system, manipulated by the master masses, taking them one by one, watching them all fall down. Time to stand up and fight it on, and fight it on. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Me now me fighting for my freedom, my freedom. Whoa, whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Me now me fighting for my freedom, my freedom. Oh, the time we are in is Babylon. We got to reunite, stand up and fight it on. Together as one, calling on the nation. Stand true for the convent system, for it's a convent world. Time to give back the power to the people, the power to the people. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Me now me fighting for my freedom, my freedom. Oh, whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Me now me fighting for my freedom, my freedom. Oh, said I'm a rebel to the system. Oh, fighting for my freedom. Oh, come join me, chant down Babylon. Chant down Babylon. Unite us all for the sake of the future, and for the future and the future generation. Let's all stand together as one. Give praise to the Most High. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Me now me fighting for my freedom, my freedom. Oh, whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa. Me now me fighting for my freedom, my freedom. Oh. Oh, I say, open up your eyes and see corruption and fighting all around us. Living a convent system, manipulated by the masses, taking them one by one, watching them all fall down. Time to stand up and fight it on, and fight it on. Whoa, why, whoa, why, whoa.
Well, folks, first I'd like to give honor to the Heavenly Father in whom all blessings flow. I ask that, dear God, you come down, you send your angels to protect all that are in the attendance on today, Lord. Open their hearts, open their minds to what I'm about to bring to them, Lord. Lord, I pray that we unify all over the world, Lord. Only through you can we achieve such a goal, Lord. But we have faith in you. Our faith is in you, Lord. And we're giving you all honor and all glory. And I pray, Lord, that you would protect this broadcast. Let it go smoothly on tonight, Lord. In the name of Jesus, our precious, precious King of Kings. Amen. Amen. Well, as you can see, you all, we're going to talk about kings today. And I thank you all so very much. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to come on today because I was going through some things. There is my beautiful diva and my Sherry. Oh my goodness, my sister Dawn. Oh my goodness, Royal Jennings. Peace, peace. This is going to be a calming place, you all, because I think it's needed. Let's go right into today's topic. Now, I want you all to go back and I want you to reference Third Ward. Peace to you, always on time. I want you to reference the teaching that I brought last time. It was about Elon Musk. But this is going into now, we're headed over to China. Can you believe that this is what Xi Jinping actually said? I vow to lead the new world order. Well, in February of 2017, on the day of 22, an article was published. Chinese President Xi Jinping has vowed for the first time that China should take the lead in shaping the new world order and safeguarding international security. One of the latest moves putting him in stark contrast to Donald Trump and the US president's America's First policy. Now, remember, this was in 2017. Xi Jinping had on numerous occasions called for China to play an important part in building the New World Order. But during a February 17th national security seminar in Beijing, he indicated China should guide the international community in the effort. And that is what is said. The overall trend of world multi-polarization, economic globalization, and democratization of international relations remains unchanged, he said. We should guide the international community to jointly build a more just and reasonable new world order. These are his words, you all. It was paraphrased as saying during last week's seminar in another paragraph, the state newswire paragraph paraphrased Xi Jinping as saying we should guide the international community in jointly maintaining international security. That was 2017. What has happened to China since then? Well, we already know about Wuhan and so forth, but I'm going to take you deep because you know I like to go down that rabbit hole, correct? So we know this is what he said in 2017, but I also said, if you look in the Bible, if you are a believer, this is for my believers, if you are a believer, all throughout biblical times, you see when the kings, even King David, and so many others, they were punished for their deeds. Not only were they punished, but their people had to suffer as well. But let's go down the rabbit hole now, shall we? I want to talk about some of the emperors, the past emperors of China. I want to show you one of the last emperors, if you don't mind. And we're going to call him Xi because you can always break down their names to pronounce them easier. But Xi, to date, there is no conclusive archaeological evidence confirming the existence of this mythical first dynasty. There are also no written records about Xi during the Shang dynasty, the latter proposedly the dynasty that replaced Zhai. Despite these, many Chinese believe in the existence of Zhai and how its final emperor was a nightmarish tyrant. Purportedly, Xi was an exceptionally cruel man, greatly intolerant of criticism and obsessed with sex, luxury, and entertainment. His numerous crimes included listen to this, a fondness for riding his his advisors like horses. He rode his advisors like they were horses, you all, and constructing a wine lake filled with naked men and women for his favorite consort. According to records dating several centuries later, Xi's horrific rule eventually saw many of the kingdoms he held over rallying under the kingdom of Shang. He was a very nasty, nasty emperor, you all. Let's go to the next now. After many battles, Tang, the king of Shang, defeated Zhai and established the Shang dynasty. And I know a lot of you have heard of some of these dynasties. Thereafter became a metaphor in Chinese literature for inevitable change as a result of tyrannical rule. We can call him Shudi. Shudi. Napoleon Bonaparte once remarked that history is a version of past events that people have decided to agree upon. This may be so in the case of Zhen, the last emperor of the Shang dynasty, otherwise known as Shang Zhao Wang. Immortalized in the literal epic, The Investiture of the Gods, Zhen was described as a foul-natured tyrant, hopelessly bewitched by Daji, the human form of a nine-tailed vixen. Under Daji's wicked influence, Daijing indulged in a great variety of immoral activities, sins such as constructing the wine pool and a meat forest, a large wine lake with an island on which meat skewers were suspended from trees. So, which means that his people had to actually climb trees in order to eat. He also allegedly devised various brutal execution methods and was said to, listen to this, to be sexually aroused by them. The most notorious of these methods was the cannon burning punishment. A hollow bronze cylinder would be heated till red hot while a victim is tied naked to it. Given that the investiture of the gods included an entire host of supernatural beings, it is responsible, it is reasonable, to doubt that Daijin was such a horrific ruler, or rather, later generations exaggerated his downfall. Now, what I took from that is that a lot of the generations later, they did not know that there were a lot of spiritual beings that were walking the earth. So maybe their their generations to come, they could not even fathom some of the things that their ancestors had actually witnessed. That said, it is known that Daijing's troops were soundly defeated in 1046 BC, with the defeated emperor thereafter committing suicide. For the Chinese, he goes down in history as one of the most terrible Chinese emperors ever to. Don't know why they didn't finish that sentence. His outrageous crimes continue to be regularly condemned in television and movie adaptations of The Investiture of the Gods. Next up, very portly young man he is. We're going to call him Gong Xing. Gong Xing. Yu Wang was the 12th ruler of the Western Zhao dynasty, and apart from him, from his notorious love story, little is known about him. In 779 BC, a consort named Bao Si entered the palace, and before long, Zhu Wang was completely obsessed with the beauty. He even replaced his original queen for her. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, I was thinking about King David. Yeah. Uh, Unfortunately for the Poseidon emperor, though, Bao Si was melancholic by nature and uninclined to smile, no matter what the emperor did. Eventually, Yu Wang experimented with the prank, listen to this, with the prank of lighting wartime warning beacons and fooling his nobles into thinking barbarians were invading the capital. At the sight of the armies frantically rushing to his aid of the capital, the moody Bao Si finally broke into a hint of a smile. This was his consort that made her happy to see so many of the nobles running to their aid. That is the only thing that made her happy. Indignant as they were, the nobles would have forgiven Wu Wang, Yu Wang, had not repeatedly pulled the same prank. Ultimately, in an Oriental staging of The Boy Who Cried Wolf story, no one came to the capital's aid when the barbarians actually did attack the capital. Yu Wang was slaughtered during the invasion, while Bao Si was captured. She later committed suicide. After the Zhao dynasty regained control, the capital was permanently shifted eastward to Luoyang, to thus ending the Western Zhao dynasty era. The story of the foolish emperor who toyed with military matters for the sake of a smile then became an enduring Chinese allegory on responsibility and sensitivity. The next emperor, we will call him Li Xing, Liu Xing. Incredible as it sounds, homosexuality was tolerated in ancient China. During the Western Han Dynasty, male consorts openly existed within the imperial palace, these usually being handsome and artistic young men or palace eunuchs. Their former duties range from mere attendance to important court officials. Some historical accounts even state that practically every Han emperor had a favorite guy in his entourage. That includes greatly respected Han emperors such as Han Zhao and Han Wudi. In the case of Han Idi, the young emperor became infatuated at first sight with his handsome guy. He was so besotted, he immediately bestowed an emissary position. He even allowed the younger man to sit on his lap. These are emperors of China, you all. In the years to follow, he was showered he was showered with even more riches and promotions. This was his male lover, resulting in him becoming the most powerful official in China at the age of 22. So love struck was he even joked about abdicating in favor of his male friend. Gross misconduct considered unimaginable. By all accounts, the emperor would have ultimately monopolized power in the palace, maybe even, I'm sorry, this was his lover, maybe even dispose of the emperor. Had the emperor not then mysteriously died in 1 BC. So we know that homosexuality was rampant in China and especially with the emperors and also their consorts, you all. The Passion of the Cut Sleeve. Modern historians agree that the king and his lover likely had an active homosexual relationship despite both being married and the emperor having children. The famous story goes that one afternoon the emperor woke up to find his lover still fast asleep on his sleeve. So as to not wake his lover, the emperor cut off his sleeve before leaving the bed. The legend gave rise to the Chinese metaphor, the passion of the cut sleeve, which is a veiled way of referring to male homosexuality. Of note, compared to other Chinese emperors on the list, this emperor wasn't particularly wicked or oppressive. He was just a foolish young man, head over heels with another man. Regrettably, this hastened the demise of his already embattled dynasty. And where is my next emperor? Give me 1 second. Hmm. No, that's not the next one. This is the next one. Here he is. Liu Hong reigned from AD 168 to AD 189. I can't read what you're saying in the comments, but I'll read it later, you guys. Han Ling Di is what we'll call him, was the 12th emperor of the Eastern Han dynasty, the last to wield real power too. Dissolute by nature, he neglected state affairs and overindulged in women. Worse, the court came to be dominated by eunuchs during his reign, the worst of these being the hated Zhang Rang. These corrupted court officials levied increasingly unbearable taxes on peasants to fund the emperor's lavish lifestyle and to line their own pockets. Han Ling Di himself also approved the practice of selling political offices for money. This irredeemably damaged the integrity of the already teetering Eastern Han dynasty. Without surprise, Han Ling Di's actions became major catalysts for the demise of the Eastern Han dynasty. His appalling policies infuriated and empowered various warlords and political factions, with open conflict breaking out between these factions shortly after Han Ling's death. As a result of the subsequent power grabbing, China was also fragmented into three, thus giving birth to the war torn Three Kingdoms era. No thanks to this bad emperor, hundreds and thousands of Chinese, listen to this. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? Hundreds and thousands of Chinese died in decades of continuous civil war. The Middle Kingdom would be reunited until it would not be reunited until 60 years later. The next, Gao Yang, Gao Yang reigned from AD 550 to AD 559. Many Chinese emperors achieved greatness early in their reigns, only to slip into debauchery and disgrace in later years. Among the many examples is, we're going to call him Gao Yang of northern Kuai. During the northern and southern dynasty periods, stands as the most appalling. I want you to listen about this one, you all. Respected in his youth for his military prowess as well as efforts to reduce corruption, the emperor eventually succumbed to alcoholism and, by all accounts, was very possibly psychotic during his later reign. Horrifically, he once beheaded a consort he suspected of infidelity. He also tossed her head onto a banquet platter while fondling the corpse's leg. During the emperor's years, the entire court, including his son, lived in constant fear of him too. Not only was the emperor homicidal when drunk, he was also an insatiable womanizer. Few females in the palace were spared. Ironically, despite the emperor's savagery at home, Northern Kwai was at his strongest under him. His brutality during war saw the conquest or repulsion of many barbarian tribes. Law and order within the imperial court were also strengthened through fear of him. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I know. It thus remains anyone's guess as to what Northern Kwai would have become when the emperor did not, if he had not abruptly died at the age of 33. A lot of these emperors died very young. I'm noticing that trend, likely from alcohol related reasons. Would it have strengthened to the extent it could defeat its southern rivals and reunite China? One could only speculate. You'd all, as I was doing my research on kings and on emperors, I noticed, as I said, one common theme. And that theme was that there was always death and chaos during their reigns. And as a result, a lot of their people were punished, or a lot of their people, they were the blunt, you all, they were the blunt of their sins. I had to bring to you, oh, let's see, I'm going to read in just one moment. But I was thinking back to biblical times and I thought about King David and Bathsheba. That story always bothered me. The the depths of our kings and our leaders to get what they want. And then not only do their families suffer, but also their kingdoms or even queendoms suffer as well. I was thinking about Xi Jinping, and it is just because you see, when you have to hold your leaders accountable. You have to. But in dictatorships, sometimes that's not possible. I think about Cuba. I think about Fidel. I think about Celia Cruz and about the other artists that had to flee their lands. Celia was never allowed to see her family again when she fled Cuba, and so many others as well. I think about the travesties, but I also think about what happens to the lands of the tyrannical leaders, and such as Xi Jinping. He is a descendant on the throne, if you will, of China. What happened after he after he gave this speech? I vow to be the new world order leader. I will lead it. What happened, you all, in 2019? You see, God is not to be mocked. You cannot set yourself as a supreme God. You must always think of your people in everything that you do. If you are a leader, no matter where you are, you have a responsibility to your people, because do you not know that the sins of the father, you all already know where I'm going with this, the sins of the father, their children will inherit those sins. So perhaps the father or the mother, they may not be punished, but their children and their grandchildren will. Everything that we do today, you have to think the generations to come, will they, just like David and Bathsheba, they lost their child, didn't they? Because it wasn't anything that the child did. It was why? Because the father's sin, you all. Going back to the Bible, I think about Egypt and about pharaohs and about many, many countries that endured bondage, slavery. I look at their leaders. I look at their leaders as well. I think how sad it is that, Sherry, you were correct, but this is not always spoken about, that a lot of the kings in the continent of Africa, they also sold their their slaves or their POWs, prisoners of war. I wonder if they knew where those prisoners of war would have ended up. I wonder if they would have sold them to people from foreign lands. We we must change. We must change. We must be the catalyst for change. We must hold our leaders, our presidents, our vice presidents, our mayors, our congresswomen, our congressmen. We must hold them accountable, you all, because a lot of times our lives are in their hands. And because of their sins, we may, and as you can see now, Wuhan, we may suffer for their decisions. Let me read some of the comments now, but it's forgotten now. Yes, some, not all. And Diva Tomboy says, Miss Sherry, that was going on in so many monarchies. Yes, indeed. I love royal scandals. I used to talk about them all the time before I was interrupted with drama. I remember Diva. Man, on Diva's channel, we had such great builds, is what I call them. I mean, she brought so much wisdom, you guys. It was beautiful to behold. And I'll always cherish those times. You see, sometimes we will get the enemy, the enemy pulls you away from your purpose. The enemy, you see, you have to allow evil in. Sometimes it won't just jump on you. Sometimes you're open to it, and then before you know it, and I'm going to talk about this weekend, I'm going to talk about the old gods resurrected. Who are they? What are the spirits of the gods that are now roaming the earth? Do you know that we can actually find the gods in the Bible that we have resurrected? When did we resurrect it? Some of them, we resurrected them in 1960. In 1960. I wonder if some of you remember what happened in that year. Does anyone remember something monumental happened in 1960? Can anyone tell me? Because I'm going to tell you how we resurrected the old gods. What they took something out of schools, you all. Can anyone tell me what they took out of schools? Can anyone tell me? I'm going to keep reading. Let's see. Diva says in the 1600s, she knows her history and her story. King Louis allowed his brother to have a lover in the palace. G5 says, I noticed that. Sherry says they all look grossly overweight, of course, because they were gluttons. That is a sin. But they were sinful people. Diva says, in Africa, the more weight a wife has, that means her husband is wealthy. Indeed, indeed. And portly or beautifully plumped, that you are right. That is a sign of beauty. So I was told I love food and super greedy. Well, I love food too. I think if we stop looking at the outward appearance, I think if we start working on the inside, on our spirit. See, let me explain to you. You cannot take that chubby body with you to the other side. You cannot take your beautiful hair or your eyelashes or, your beautiful wigs. All of that's not going to matter on the other side. Because I always say, there's a beautiful song, and my beloved plays this all the time about dancing with your father for the last time. You don't know. Yes, Vietnam, you don't know when your last day is. So imagine if you were filled with demons, if you were filled with evil, and then you have a heart attack in your sleep and then you die. And you don't come back like some of us did, but you don't come back. So everything that you accumulated on this earth, you see, we are spirit beings, but in physical form, you all. I don't think a lot of you realize that. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. There you go. I think prayer. I went to Christian and Catholic, so it was always a prayer. Indeed. And there you have it. It was just that simple. We ushered in the old gods. Now, see, it's always been evil on the planet, don't get me wrong. But I'm actually going to prove to you and I'm going to name the old gods that we ushered in as of 1960, you all. That will be this weekend. Now you know what his plan was, and now you know why his people and his land had to suffer. Not only for that reason, you all, that would be enough because we knew what his plan was and we know what he's doing now and how many had to die because he was so proud. He would not he would not take any help. But here is another reason why a lot of dynasties, a lot of countries are falling. They are crumbling. They are being judged now because if you have companies in the Congo and in China and so many other places, and you are using children, and children are dying, the most precious of all on this planet. If you are using children to gain your wealth, then not only you will be judged, but your people will be judged as well. Now you all know. I will always try to give you facts, you all. Okay, yeah, I was right. Yeah, 1962 in the 60s. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about reviving your deceased children. Is it possible? Is it possible? I showed you a picture of that, but I think I will show you again. If I have that picture, I may. Give me 1 second. And here it is. Let me take this off of the screen so that you will see. This says it all, believe it or not. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up. Here it is. Well, your babies, you can revive for a discounted price. When I tell you what these babies can do, it's going to shock you. Now, we think of baby dolls, back in our day. That's what my brother called me when I was brought home. My mother said, my big brother, he looked at me and said, "You look just like she looks like a little baby doll." And so now you know what my family calls me, and I'm almost 60. They still see me as baby doll. But we think of our plastic dolls back in the day, don't we? We think about our Barbies and the dolls you could use the little bottles, and they had their little diapers, but they were still plastic. But now it's something so sinister that has come out, you guys. I promise you, the psychological games that they are now playing with mothers that have lost their children, I call for a boycott because I know exactly what the enemy has planned. If your loved one is gone, let them go. It was hard for me yesterday because that was the anniversary. But if your children have left this plane, let them go. Do not bring them back in this way, you all. But I'm going to show you this company tomorrow. So, of course, it is such an honor. It is such an honor that you all are here. I thank you. I like to keep it short because I know a lot of us, we have busy, busy lives, you guys, but I'm very, very blessed that you always come through. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., it is called Baby Alive. I love you guys.